Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session today, From Systems to Solutions, using systems thinking and design thinking to tackle complex problems. My name is Barbara Cotto. I am the faculty lead to the Sprint Challenge at FIU, and I am also the program director for FIU Business Innovation and Growth Accelerator. I will be alongside with you throughout the next few weeks, hosting different webinars with several colleagues in the subjects of entrepreneurship, getting you ready, not only in the case that you chose to participate or you choose to participate of our sprint challenge, but also on your interest of furthering your entrepreneurial skills. And with that, we will get started. So, whether or not you're familiar with the term or the practice of systems thinking, right? And I always like to start with an example. And that example is think about your everyday, right? And all the thoughts that cross your mind on a daily basis, right? Whether you have to come to campus or you have to connect for a class or a webinar like this one, you have to go to work, you have appointments that you have to get to, you have situations that you need to take care of. And normally you need to either juggle or prioritize. What will you do first or second? And what things can take last place in the things to resolve, right? So think about all those thoughts moving around and kind of going around in circles in your head. That's kind of how we normally portray the image of a system, right? We have many components to a system. Some of those components connect with others. Some of them interact on its own. Each have a different function, right? But I will invite you to think of systems thinking as a cohesive way to manage all those thoughts. And it doesn't mean that every situation or every thought will be resolved or come to conclusion. It just means that we will learn to work around, right? That's kind of the analogy, but let's explain further. So, what is systems thinking? I don't know if you guys have heard before of Peter Senge, but Peter Senge is a renowned professor who has been very much focused in organizational development and in education. And he's been talking about systems thinking for quite a few years, even before people thought of systems itself, right? Or thinking about processes in a way or structuring in a way of let's just say systemizing or understanding that there could be a systemic approach to it. And so Peter Senge had basically define five main disciplines in order to see the situations around us as a whole, right? Not as isolated situations, but that they are part of a, let's just say, space, circle, situation. You can name a community or a specific task. And he defined it as a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than things, for seeing patterns of change rather than static snapshots. And what does that mean? It means that the way that the different elements will come up can come up in different ways, but they can relate to other things coming up. And you will think, that's too much Scrabble. I'm not understanding what that is about. Well, systems thinking is a sensibility for the subtle interconnectedness that gives living systems their unique characters. In other words, you and I belong to a community, and each of us has a specific role within our communities, right? We connect through this webinar as I am your facilitator today. Tomorrow, I might connect with you at a class I teach, and that is a requirement for you. That's how we interconnect. We interconnect at times, but not always we will be connecting. And that's okay, but we belong to the same system or to the same community, the community in South Florida. Whether you are a local or you're just here for school, at this point in time, we connect under the same community. Functionality. That is a traditional way of systems working, right? That is a good example of what Senji is trying to define as systems thinking. Senji defined five main disciplines: team learning, shared vision, mental models, personal mastery, and systems thinking. And how do they all correlate? Well, we know that as humans, it's at times very difficult to collaborate with others or to do team projects, right? Because we each have a unique set of skills. Some of us are more creative, some of us are more into disciplines. And unless we have the openness to understand and collaborate with each other, it becomes at times a challenge, right? Especially if we don't share a vision. If we have very different beliefs, we need to find a common ground that help us relate and get tasks accomplished. And that comes also with mental models, right? In the way that we design, that we process, and that we execute. And lastly, our masteries. And I will use the example. Some of you are majoring in some business discipline, but some others are in the engineering side, right? But whether you're doing business or you're doing engineering, there is science involved, right? And that will be kind of the shared vision of bringing in a solution, although in different areas of science. And that actually has an interconnectedness. And that interconnectedness makes us part of a system. And it's a system that was well thought. All those words and those scenarios, that's a projection of systems thinking. Now, how can we simplify that? Well, think about your routine in the everyday, and you will ask me, oh, what that has to do with entrepreneurship, or what that has to do with running a business, or what that has to do with me becoming maybe a consultant, right? Or in the corporate world for the role that I want to achieve when I graduate. It implies a lot of things, right? We as humans, we go by patterns. We define what our routines are, and routines translate into having patterns on the everyday. And normally, when somebody or someone or a situation disrupts our patterns, we either like it or dislike it depending on our mindset, right? Or on the needs that we have, on what we need to work on or what we would like to work on. And for that matter specifically, it means that if I identify patterns on myself, if I have a very unique way of keeping my daily routine, I have very much a well-defined way, being redundant, of looking at things around me or visiting places around me or executing around me, right? And in autopilot, what we will call autopilot, I will tend to do things fast-paced because I need to get them done without necessarily looking at other things that are around me. And I could do a lot of fast things to get them done, but it doesn't mean that they are the right things, or it doesn't mean that I can do better slower to actually achieve more, right? Because we have a system, and that system is what has us, we will say, in survival mode or in living mode, right? But when we aim to understand the systems around us, meaning at work, the company that you aspire to be recruited by, the areas where you wish to do consulting as and have a mastery on, or simply actually kick off your side hustle, or your vendor, you need to step out of the box for a moment, meaning stepping out of your patterns and start paying attention to everything that is happening around you so you can identify problems and come up with potential solutions. Systems thinking, it's about identifying problems around you and being able to have the skills to navigate those problems, find alternate ways around those problems that will help you achieve your goals, even if they continue to exist. In other words, if I have a glitch on a system, a glitch on my computer, how can I go around that glitch to turn in my paper? And being able to just live with that glitch until a better solution comes along the way, right? It is identifying the problem, being aware of the problem, but finding ways for that problem have the minimum amount of impact in my life. And is actually us being conscious about the problems that are around us in our communities, in our society, in the companies that we are working at, in the companies that we aspire to be recruited by, that we will be so aware that we get ready to face them. And instead of feeling challenged by them, we can overcome them because we are identifying the patterns. So if we go on autopilot mode, which is normally where we are at, that is system one thinking, which is we are going fast all the time, but a lot of things actually come up wrong, or we just have to redo because everything around us is changing, is evolving, and we have not paid enough attention to realize that they have changed. Or the case could be that even if we think that we are doing the right thing, things are still not responding to the way that we are executing, and that is unexpected to us, right? But we could go a different way, right? We can use a different way to approach issues or to approach life. And that is system two of thinking, which is let's slow down, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to stop, but let's take things a bit more slow. Let's pay attention of what is required and what is happening around us. And that will match with doing things a better and the right way more often. I will give you an example. Students, and I know that I have 6 classes this semester, which is a great load, right? And I know that my professors have a pattern that at least I have to turn 2 papers per class per week. We are talking about 18 papers on a week, right? If I leave those 18 papers for the night before, certainly meeting that target is going to be quite a challenge. Instead, if I already identify the pattern, which is going to be 2 of them, even though I don't know what the subjects are about, and I know that the dates are not all together for the deliverables, let's establish a system on how I'm going to work with them, right? Maybe it will work that if I have a student partner that is very good at it. We discuss about how could we have a collective approach so we can further the work that we are going to deliver. Think about this in the job market or in your search for that corporate role, right? If I decide to track the company that I'm interested on and I begin to read about the trends, uh, the financial moves of that particular company in the way of them recruiting, on how they invest in talent, by the time that I understand better the landscape of the corporation where I'm getting in, beyond my aspiration of I want to be recruited by X company, we will be able to define if it really is a match for what we want, for what we aspire, and to our values. And when we talk about values, if you aim to become an entrepreneur, your values are embedded into anything that you're going to offer to market. Your values are a key component of your entrepreneurial journey. Therefore, if you recognize things that are of like or dislike, or could be disruptive in the way that you would prefer to do things, is because you are paying more attention to what is around you. Once again, systems thinking is about identifying challenges and problems around you and coming out with a way, a framework, a systemic approach that will help you navigate those problems and continue to perform and deliver. So if you move from systems 2 to system 3 of thinking, once you have practice, you will do this similar to the autopilot that we were doing in the scenario 1, but in scenario 3, which is fast and right more often because you learn to identify and you became agile enough to go around those hurdles, those problems, those issues to continue to perform and deliver. Imagine that you're an entrepreneur and that you decided to go into the food and beverage sector. And you are offering Cuban food in South Florida, right? We know that the market is full of different Cuban cuisine venues, right? Because it's predominant within the Miami area. What makes me so unique that will help me overcome my competitors in that market? Is it the quality of my food? Is it the service? Is it an experience component? Is the personalized service? What is it that makes me so unique? What is it that people are looking into that they will prefer my Cuban cuisine and what I have to offer versus all other nearby me or around me or in the area, right? When I'm able to identify my uniqueness, my strong area, that helps me. And when I am able to identify what is happening around me, that helps me become agile to go around my challenges, around my competition, and set myself to succeed. All right, let's continue. There is a video that I am going to be sharing alongside with the copy of this presentation and the recording of the presentation that I will invite you to go and watch. It is from Dr. Derek Cabrera at the Cabrera Research Institute, and he is based at Cornell University. He will provide a good example on this particular video on how systems work, right? On how we go around life every day and what we think is just the norm, at times it isn't, but we just don't have the connectedness, or we are not fully present at times to understand or appreciate that what is happening is not normal. And even if it's not normal, we could go around it. Continue. So talking a bit about Dr. Derek Cabrera and University of Cornell, although systems thinking has been out there for decades, it's not until recent years where the Cabrera Research Lab at Cornell has been more focused on breaking down the importance of systems thinking and also how to train you as an individual to be a better thinker, right? And you will, and in that analogy, you will say, well, you started talking about systems thinking and design thinking. I don't understand how these things match or contradict each other, or what is the value of it. The value of being a systems thinker is that you will pick any topic, any issue, any problem or system and ask yourself 5 questions. And that is very important for you to become the fast actioner or the fast agent that is able to move quickly and get good results, right? Like I was showing in the image in the previous slide. So, what is it that I need to do? I need to come up and say, what am I choosing to include or exclude? And this is very important. We hear often people saying, I don't want to carry this load, this bad energy. I need to set boundaries, right? Setting boundaries is similar of saying I need to include or I need to exclude things out of my everyday, out of my routine, or out of my life, right? I need to have an exercise. I need to do an exercise of what am I going to include and what is it that I'm going to exclude. Remember the first image where I told you just think about your brain, the way that you organize thoughts, the way that you prioritize actions. Similar way, I invite you to think about this, right? Just put every thought that you have out there, put it in a single space, and choose what you want to include or exclude in your pattern of thoughts. The next step to this is how are these things organized into part or whole groups, right? Are there things that correlate with each other? Or are there things that if I take care of one particular thing, I resolve 2 or 3? If that's so, I'm able to group them because it will bring in a broader solution, right? A more collective solution. How are these things related? I went into saying, well, if I take care initially of A, B and C will be resolved. If I resolve B and C, I will have more time to resolve this other group of issues, situations, or tasks that I need to prioritize. And that applies to daily problem solving. That applies to you prioritizing schoolwork, but that also applies when you aim to become an entrepreneur, right? Because when you are aspiring to become an entrepreneur, there are a lot of areas where you need to put your ideas and actions into. For example, you need to design that particular good product, service, software platform that you aspire to launch. And prior of having a full design, you need to actually identify a group of people who has expressed the need for that particular product or service in their lives, right? It's not solely about what we think will work. It's not solely about what we aim to do. We need to validate those ideas with whom potentially are going to be our clients because we must design having a human-centric approach. And that we will look into shortly when we go into design thinking, right? So we need to understand the correlation of things. Next, we need to move into, do the relationships have parts, right? So if not all of the groups relate, are some parts of that particular issue, application, project, research, applicable to others that I may have already resolved, or that could potentially help resolve one or other? That's an exercise that we need to do. And lastly, from what or whose perspective, right? When we talk about those perspectives, what we mean is that it could be from the perspective of the problem that we intend to resolve, the needs that the company specifically may have or have laid out as a priority, or what are your perspectives or priorities when it comes to what you want to achieve, right? That also plays a role into all the pieces of the system. So, why systems thinking and why design thinking? The reasoning behind this is because systems thinking is a holistic, analytical, abstract, conceptual, and relationship oriented approach. In other words, you need to understand each component, you need to understand how it relates, and you need to be analytical to understand how to go around the problem, how to tackle the problem, and how to deliver around the problem. While design thinking is very deeply human, creative, tangible, experiential, experimental, and action oriented. In other words, is very much focused on the needs of the individuals versus not paying attention, but versus focusing on a problem, right? Design thinking addresses solutions. Systems thinking focuses on the problem. And how does that impact the way that I will execute, whether it is to apply for my job, whether it is to get that internship, or becoming an entrepreneur? Ideal defines design thinking as human-centered approach to innovation, but it highlights something. It highlights the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago that we need to focus at the needs of people if we intend to design a product, service, solution, platform, app, because it's not about us or what we think that will work or not, right? It's about other humans who have needs. And when we intend to bring solutions to market, is actually to bring in a solution to a broader group of people, not only about myself, right? So the design thinking comes in to tell you, hey, you can be innovative, you can be creative, you can iterate as many times as you want, and it's okay to go back to the drawing board, but you are actually mapping the requirements of that next big thing. And that happens also if you want to apply this toolkit to your internship or corporate role search, right? It is, how am I elevating my understanding of these human issues and how I'm taking an innovative approach in understanding and action onto them that will help me succeed within the business that I am looking into getting into, or the corporation that I am looking to get into. And so when we talk about systems thinking, we're saying, hey, we will look at this by single pieces, then by unified groups, then by multiple groups, and then as a whole to identify a problem. But when we are talking about design thinking, we are thinking about divergent and convergent. And what is divergent? Divergent means that you are creating choices for humans, while converge means that you are making a choice or that human is making a choice. In other words, I will provide an example. Today we have in the smartphone market, we have iPhones, we have Androids, we have nowadays satellite phones that are becoming obsolete because smartphones are now having capacities to be able to do satellite calling, right? But we make the choice of what smartphone fits best our needs, right? While the designers of those smartphones are creating choices for us. That's basically a simple example to portray design thinking. So when we are using the approach of design thinking, they suggest that we have the core 3 activities to design. And this applies whether you're aiming to become an entrepreneur, you're aspiring to an internship, you are looking to get into that corporate role, that you are actually trying to define how you can become an independent consultant, and you want to lay out the way that you will offer your services, you can apply the core 3 activities of design thinking. And these activities are inspiration, and inspiration, although they define it as an activity, I will define it as how fuel is your engine, right? How much fuel your engine has. So what inspires you relates very much with your passions. If there is no passion behind that inspiration, then really there is no inspiration. And I like to highlight this because I need you guys to understand one thing. Entrepreneurship does not equal selling, does not equal I am a salesperson. Entrepreneurship equals passion, inspiration, aspiration, resilience, pivoting, willingness, and more other things. But entrepreneurship is never about selling. Entrepreneurship is about curing a pain. It's about being empathetic, and it's about developing or creating solutions for the needs of a broader community, group of people, or individuals, right? And so passion equals inspiration. They go hand by hand, right? After inspiration, because we are so immersed into what we believe and what we have been able to gather from others, because remember, I can have a belief, but unless others don't have that same need and they express it, I am not paying attention to humans unless I listen. And I need to listen to be able to go into the ideation stage. And once I am into the ideation stage, those who share with me their thoughts, their needs, their concerns, their pain, I will go back to them and say, hey, I came up with this idea. You inspired me by sharing your needs, and I have created or I have developed the following. Can you please try it, test it, and provide me feedback on whether or not it is what you feel you need? Would this cure your pain? Would this be a solution to your need? And once we have that validation, then we go into the implementation phase. All right? Now, how the journey of a project feels like. The journey of that project feels like, I like to compare it to the emotions, right? And I'm sorry, I need to go back to that slide. I compare it with the emotions, right? Think about when you're very excited about an event in your life. You start with a lot of hope, right? And you are driven by that adrenaline, by that hope, by that motivation. As you begin working with the project and do your research, you begin to gain insights that either further your theory or validate points, the problems that you're trying to tackle, to solve. And after gathering all those insights, you gain even more confidence that complements your hopes and your passion to keep your project going. And that leads to the image that we have on screen. As of now, we've been talking about being human-centric, about understanding problems and going about problems, or about bringing in solutions or cures to humans' situations, needs, or problems, right? We have never discussed or addressed the word customer. And in reality is that when we talked about design thinking or systems thinking, we will never talk about a customer, right? But once we have gone into either the systems thinking approach or the design thinking approach, once we have done our steps, then we could think about the word customer, right? Because those that provided us the feedback on what were their needs, what were their pains, how much they were suffering, and what they aim about are those that we went back to say, hey, I listened to you, and because I listened to you and I believe that I understand your problem, I have designed or I have come up with the following to cure your pain, to take care of your problem, and they provide you the feedback. They become your customer relationship. And we will discuss that in a different webinar where we talk about business modeling, right? And whether the business model canvas, we talk about customer relationship. But in this particular instance, that one that provided you the feedback is your potential customer, right? Because it's the one that has the problem, is the one that has provided you with the feedback, and it's the one that we have and they have self-identified as potential users of your solution, right? So we center them and we are understanding their wants, their needs, and their demands, right? And we are aiming to resolve their wants, their needs, and their demands. And by doing so, what we are doing is taking a systemic, intuitive approach, which is customer focus on solving, is customer focus, is focused on problem solving and having an approach that organizations can use to respond rapidly to environments and to create a maximum impact. In other words, I gave you the example as resolving the problems as a potential or aspiring entrepreneur, but think about it as an agent within an organization. You have teams, or the organization has clients who has new needs, and you do the research and development work to actually deliver solutions to a new category where you in the past didn't provide any services on or any goods on, or did not at first had a strategic plan to tackle or approach, but the opportunity came along the way. You assign it as a project within your entity. You become part of those individuals who are part of the project, do the research and the development, use the methodology of design thinking, and you're able to come up with a viable solution that potentially can become a new revenue stream for that particular company. That's as powerful as the tool can be, right? So it's not only to use it to lay out your pathway as an entrepreneur, but it's also to lay out ways in which you become an asset within the company that you selected to be part of, to expand their operations, and for you to further your mastery and therefore grow and scale within that company that you were aspiring and got hired by. All right. And I will also be sharing the link to a particular article from McKinsey related to this topic. So, to summarize, design thinking is infused in each step of any business transformation, right? So whether you're aiming to be part of this company and you want to be part of the change of transformation, creative and innovation team, or you aspire to become an entrepreneur, any transformation requires design thinking. And we can capture it in three different groups: discover the customer needs, design solutions or redesign the journeys, and deliver the impact. And mind you, I want to highlight deliver the impact because we could be doing this exercise for profit organizations or for nonprofit organizations. We can actually do this for your journey as an entrepreneur, tackling social problems for profit, or tackling just problems in general for profit, because social impact can be for profit. And so when we are looking at discovering the customer needs, we have to make sure that we focus on the research to be able to define the opportunities. When we talk about designing solution and redesigning journeys, we need to ideate and shape the possible solutions based on the research that we did that define the opportunities. And that will lead for us to design or have a desirable prototype or test that we will take to those who help us with the research that became part of the opportunity to validate if the solution is feasible. And once we have gathered their feedback, we will go to deliver impact, which is launching the solution and aiming to scale because we have a minimum viable proposition on that concept that gradually, with testing, we will be able to perfection, if you want to call it like that, or improve and move it into scaling. And that will be the exercise, whether you're talking about products or services, right? Or a platform, or simply if you take an approach within your career, right? Research is imperative for you to define opportunities. Without research and understanding, the definition of opportunities is only tactical and not strategic. So we have learned about systems thinking and design thinking. And as complex as some of the terms may sound, let's summarize them to be of better use and of better understanding to all of you. What did they both have? Well, they both emphasize understanding problems before building solutions. They are both nonlinear. They both prioritize gaining insights, input information, or our magic word, having research, right, from people, and then iterating upon your ideas in a cyclical fashion. In other words, unless you've done your research and identify the opportunities, right? Understand what the problem is. That is the route for you to go on to your drawing board to come up with ideas in a way that they are not serving yourself, but they are serving a broader group. Now, design thinking is user focused. It prioritizes deeply understanding of the problems in a core group. That core group is your users group. It is solution oriented, and it culminates its cycle with a prototype for a solution that can be tested with real people. In other words, you go to market with that product. While systems thinking is focused not on the user, but in the system where the user resides, right? It prioritizes an understanding of the factors around us, right? And the dynamics that make up the complex problem. I will give you an example of a complex problem. A community that lacks uh, drinkable water service or just water service in general, right? The problem is just more complex than just the community, right? It entitles a system, and behind that system, it's a company, it's a governmental system that impacts the infrastructure. There are multiple issues, or there are multiple agents that impact the delivery of that water to that particular community. And it's problem oriented. It focuses on developing a nuanced understanding of the problem through the creation of a systems map. In other words, once you understand what are the problems with that particular issue, with that particular system, you map around the solutions to continue to live, but have a more, I won't say peaceful, but a more flawless way of living, because you find alternate solutions that will provide you the water, although it's not reaching you currently at your community. So if it's not getting into the community, how do I activate entities, units, even how do I build alliances with the fire department that they can come in and refill our tanks, our emergency tanks, or have different stations that could give us access to have water, since we are having this particular problem with the system. That is creating a map of resources to bring in alternate solutions to the problem. It's oriented on the problem, it's not oriented in the user. That is what makes the difference between design thinking and systems thinking. And with that, we have officially wrapped up our webinar today on design thinking and systems thinking. This recording will be shared with all of you, in addition to a PDF of this presentation, the link to the systems thinking video, and the McKinsey article. I hope you have an excellent day. If you are interested in joining our sprint challenge, please make sure that you scan the QR code in the flyer and fill out your application. If you have any questions in regards to the sprint challenge or any of the webinars, please feel free to email us at bcottoji@fiu.edu. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.